Today I'm going to go through paper 1 question 4 because it's worth 20 marks, and so it's important that we know what goes into it. This should take you about 25 minutes in the exam. There's plenty to talk about for this question because the idea is that you analyse methods and you respond to a statement. So you need to agree or disagree with the statement and support why you think this. So I'm not going to read out the whole text. What I am going to read out is just the opening contextual bit. Do not skip this because it might give you some information that becomes quite useful later on. So Camilla is a short story written by J. Sheridan Lefanu in 1872. There was an error there. The text focuses on a young girl, the speaker, who has a beautiful female visitor to her family's large home. The text is a Gothic short story which explores ideas of vampires. So we know there's going to be vampires in it. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing out. Instead, I'm just going to do this so that you can read it yourself. I know it's really, really quick, but hopefully if you pause it, you can actually read it quite easily. Right, okay. Now, the question asks you to look at lines 24 to the end. A student having read this text said the writer creates a really eerie atmosphere. We are made to feel scared for Camilla. So the first thing you need to do is bear this in mind because those are the lines that you need to make sure you look at. They're quite clever in that question 4 looks at a different section than question 2 so that you can't talk about the same language analysis. You might be able to repeat some of your structure analysis though, so bear that in mind. So question 4, lines 24 to the end. I'm just very quickly going to draw a nice box around 24 to the end so that I know not to focus on any other part of the text. That's really important. You will need to read it all. Make sure you don't skip that because this bit here might have something that makes this bit here make sense or to change the meaning. So you need to make sure that you read the whole lot. But for this sake, we're just going to mainly focus on this section of the text. Okay. Now, here you will need 3 colours because hopefully AQA keep their form and they have 2 sections to the statement. This is the first section, creates a really eerie atmosphere, is the first thing they say, and the second thing is we're made to feel scared for Camilla. Now if there's only one section to the statement, don't worry, just try and make it into 2 different points or make it into one really good point. It really doesn't matter too much. This is just for the sake of planning, so it might help just to have one statement out anyway because you can make it into 2 different ones. So the writer creates a really eerie atmosphere as your first colour. So all you need is to highlight that first. Then I've got green for we are made to feel scared for Camilla. And then my third colour is actually going to be disagree. Now, this comes with a slight warning because AQA aren't going to give you a statement that you completely disagree with. That would be really harsh. But what you are being expected to do is be critical with this. So if you're able to say that you agree to some extent that it's eerie and that we feel scared, but actually there's another degree to it as well, then that's going to get you hopefully more marks because you're being more critical. The only issue is you need to decide why you disagree before you start writing it up. And if you don't disagree, then stick to 2 main points about agree, and then maybe find a third point reason why you agree. Okay, but this is to give you some, but actually it also creates this effect kind of drama. Okay, now with these colours, now we just need to look for proof. So the writer creates a really eerie atmosphere as the first thing. So in yellow, which is the colour I just used, I'm going to highlight anything that creates a really eerie atmosphere. So in her white nightdress, bathed from her chin to her feet in one great stain of blood, is quite eerie. Also, I awakened with a shriek, possessed with the one idea that Camilla was being murdered. Also quite eerie. Now, my second colour, so we are made to feel scared for Camilla. So in green, I'm going to highlight anything that makes me feel scared for Camilla. So our knocking was unanswered. It soon became a pounding and an uproar. We shrieked her name, but all was in vain. Makes me feel a little bit scared for Camilla. And then finally, I think this bit at the end, Camilla was gone. Makes me feel a little bit more scared for Camilla. Now the question is why I disagree. Now I've just read the opening that said that they have a vampire come to stay with them, and actually I have a feeling by the end that Camilla is actually the one who's dangerous. So that's why I'm going to disagree to some extent. So I'm going to disagree because Camilla seems dangerous. And then what I need to do is I need to find proof for that. Now I got it from somewhere, so it should be quite easy to find proof. I'm probably going to go with this bit right at the beginning. So she heard a voice which said, "Your mother warns you to beware of the assassin." And then Camilla's at the end of her bed. Now, I think that makes Camilla actually seem scary. The next bit makes her seem like she might be in danger, but there's debate there, and that's what I can talk about. Now, for the writing up, you obviously can't just, well, you can just quote and explain, but you won't get a lot of marks because part of the mark scheme is about talking about methods. Now, when we're talking about methods, it doesn't mean that we've necessarily got to talk about metaphors, similes, triplets, senses, and all those things. It can be a type of imagery. It can be a word choice. It could be a tone that's used. So don't feel like you always need to go, I need to find a metaphor or simile, okay? Now, the way I'm going to break this up is I'm going to break it up into your obvious method first. So what is the obvious method being used? What is the effect of that? And then I'm going to try and break that up a little bit more into either the image or the tone, a word choice, and then, if I can, a structure choice. Okay, now that's going to be for each point. So hopefully by the end of this, I won't have 3 points because I'm only writing up 1, but hopefully you would have 3 points. Now this is the same kind of structure that I'm actually going to use, apart from that bit, with language analysis. So it's something that I'm going to repeat all the way through. The important thing is that you're responding to this statement. So you can't just list these things. You need to make sure that you agree or you disagree and that you really support what's said here. If you detract from this, you're not answering the question. So we'll start on the yellow bit because that will make more sense to start from the beginning. So a nice way to open, a nice easy way to open. I agree to some extent that. Now I'm going to just pretty much repeat what's said in the statement. So that the writer creates an eerie atmosphere Now, at the moment, we're talking simple. Simple is, a fine start, but we need to perhaps add a because here. So I agree to some extent that the writer creates an eerie atmosphere because Camilla is described in an unnatural state. Now, all I'm doing here is I'm using the quotes that I've already highlighted to base my answer on. I'm not going to try and look at everything. I'm just going to focus on these phrases that I highlighted. So that's what's described in the quotes. Now I'm going to pick the quote I'm going to start with, and although it's a long quote, in her white night dress bathed from her chin to her feet in one great stain of blood, I feel like I can say quite a lot about it. So I'm going to now focus on writing that bit up. So this is clear through the use of. Straight away I've started talking about methods, and this is where I start doing this, the obvious method. In her white nightdress, bathed chin to feet, one great stain of blood. Pretty gruesome, pretty disturbing. It's the image which I think creates the eerie atmosphere here. I think it's a really scary image. So I'm just going to put here the use of the disturbing image. Don't feel like you're letting yourself down by saying things like that, because actually that is the method that's effective here. So the disturbing image, and then I'm going to copy out my quote. So in her white nightdress, bathed from her chin to her feet in one great stain of blood. Okay, so we've got a lovely quote here. So we managed to gain a few more marks because we've got a reference. It's a long reference, but I'm going to break it up. So first of all, I'm going to go back to this obvious method. So by using this disturbing image of the stain of blood, and you'll see here I'm re-quoting because I want to make sure that I show the examiner that I'm talking about little bits of the quote and not just the whole quote. So I'm focusing on a method here. By using the disturbing image of stain of blood, the writer, and here I want to call to attention some of our evaluative verbs. Emphasises, heightens, enhances, underpins and highlights. There's some really nice evaluative verbs here, so I'm going to use the word heightens. By using the disturbing image of the stain of blood, the writer heightens our shock at Camilla's appearance. As it seems so violent and unnatural. So I talked about effect on the reader as well. Now the one thing I haven't done enough is I haven't mentioned that it's eerie. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is I'm going to make sure I talk about it being eerie. Okay. So furthermore, and now I'm going to pick it apart a little bit. I've talked about the image. So now I'm going to talk about this great stain. So furthermore, the phrasing great stain makes the image eerie because is your key word here. Because it makes the violence seem more permanent, and I quite like great. I think hyperbolic. Oh, hyperbolic. I like the dash, by the way, because it means that I can add something. If I don't think I've made a good enough point, I'm going to add something with a dash. So because it makes the violence seem more permanent and hyperbolic, it seems like Camilla is now tainted by the blood. So I just wanted to add that because I thought that was my main point. That's where I was getting to, but I didn't want to start a new sentence. Now word choice. Let's see. So back to our quote: in her white nightdress, bathed from her chin to her feet in one great stain of blood. I think if I don't talk about bathed, then I'd be letting myself down. So also the word bathed emphasises the eerie atmosphere. Actually, emphasises not right. Enhances the eerie atmosphere because we would usually, it usually has connotations of being clean. So we would usually associate bathed with cleanliness, which makes Carmilla seem even more unnatural. Okay, and then last but not least, done word choice. Can I talk about structure? I'm going to talk about the contrast between the white and the blood. I mean, structural choice could be the sentence type, it could be the placement in the text, it could be repetition, it could be anything really. But here I want to talk about the contrast. So, the impression of eeriness. Is further, now I'm going to use emphasized, through the contrast between white and blood. The writer has used the white nightdress to make Carmilla seem innocent as it holds connotations of purity. It's worth mentioning connotations as a word. But this is, I'm going to go back to unnatural, although I have said it quite a lot. So this is made unnatural through the shocking blood. Okay, so I agree to some extent that the writer creates an eerie atmosphere because Carmilla is described in an unnatural state. This is clear through the use of the disturbing image in her white nightdress bathed from her chin to her feet in one great stain of blood. By using the disturbing image of the stain of blood, the writer heightens her shock at Carmilla's appearance as it seems violent and unnatural. Furthermore, the phrasing great stain makes the image eerie because it makes the violence seem permanent and hyperbolic. It seems like Carmilla is now tainted by the blood. Also, the word bathed enhances the eerie atmosphere because we would associate bathed with cleanliness, which makes Carmilla seem even more unnatural. The impression of eeriness is further emphasized through the contrast between white and blood. The writer has used the white nightdress to make Carmilla seem innocent, as it holds connotations of purity, but this is made unnatural through the shocking blood. Now, that's taken me quite a while to write. So what you might find is that in the 25 minutes, you might only be able to do 2 of these points if you do it to this extent. Now, all we did was we went through and we said, so I agree to some extent, and then we made sure we reference the main point. This is clear through the use of, and then you've got your main method, then back to the main method by using the writer does something. Furthermore, the phrasing, I mean, there you're basically talking about your image or your tone. Then we go on to the word, so also the word bathed. And then finally, this is further emphasized through the, and then we've got a structural choice. Now, if you don't want to do all of those things, you could just get away with talking about this bit here. So I agree because of the use of, and then by using this. This is going to be more eked into thoughtful and confident, so, and maybe even perceptive or detailed. So if you want to make sure that you get clear, that's I agree to some extent, this is clear for the use of, and by using the, it creates this impression. So to break it up again, obvious method, effect, image, tone, word choice and structure. So these are your key bits, is this bit here. That's going to be your starting point, and then either this or this to back it up. My next point would just be exactly the same structure, but we are made to feel scared for Camilla. And then if I get onto it, However, I do disagree to some extent that the writer makes us feel scared for Camilla because she is actually the one who seems dangerous. And then I do a whole new point based on that. Do be careful. Don't agree, disagree. Make sure you use this phrase in here. So I agree to some extent. And for planning, remember 3 colours and then just 3 colours in there as well. I'm hoping that makes complete sense. If all else fails, you want to have, do you agree or disagree? How is this created through an obvious choice? And there, obviously, I said imagery is absolutely fine. And then you want to pick that apart. So you want to explain the method. And then you want to make sure you talk about a word choice, at least. Okay, so that's your very basic right there.